Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligible Podcast. My name is Will Stone. I had my mic muted as we got started, so sorry, YouTube. About 10 seconds in until I realized it. But yeah, it's Wednesday of game week against LSU. Perhaps the biggest game at Kyle Field, some say since '85, maybe 2016, maybe it's '98, maybe it's, you know, there's something else in there. But this is without a doubt a huge, huge game, given the opponent, given the stakes, and what it could set up for the rest of the season. Let's get into a couple of team notes real quick. On Wednesdays, Mike Elko does his coaches hour. I think at Rudy's, but or it's not Rudy, it's somewhere else. But he talks for an hour to the media, and there's usually not too crazy of updates in there. But also on Wednesday night, the official or the first availability report comes out for this Saturday. Chase Basantis, starting left guard, is listed as out for this weekend. We don't know the severity of this injury, if it's long term, if it's maybe just a couple of games. I think if it was season ending, we probably would have heard, but I don't know for sure, so don't take that to the bank. But like obviously it's a big loss. You hate to not have like one of your best offensive linemen, but he went down in the first quarter against Mississippi State, and was we had T.J. Shanahan come in for a bit. We had Cam Dewberry come in for a bit, and both played perfectly fine, if not very well, each of them. So I think I would lean Shanahan getting the nod here. He's really come along as a really good young interior lineman. Plays with a mean streak, and plays the way you want in the run game and pass pro as well. So while it sucks to not have Basantis, and obviously hope he gets back to full strength pretty soon. I don't think it's going to affect the game that much. I think we're going to be a-okay with the five that we got. I believe he said on Monday, I don't think I mentioned this, but Nick Scorton is fine. He had some illness last week, was not able to properly hydrate leading up to the game, so you saw him go down a couple times with cramps and things like that. He should be fine this week. Elko called out Javon Thomas, the cornerback, as just dealing with some things that the toll that a season takes on you. He's not listed on the report. I think he's going to be fine. And then Terry Bussey, not listed. I think he's good to go. Elko said he'd be good to go on Monday as well. So, all in all, I think it's a good spot to be in. I was kind of flipping through. Tex Sags and Travis Brown do a good job of covering those coaches' night press conferences. There was one that I bookmarked that I wanted to go to. See if I can get to it. Yeah, so I asked about Connor Wigman. Said he's becoming more of a student of the game. Sometimes you play quarterback so long that you get into a rhythm. For him, it's like, hey, let's elevate this thing. Let's find things we don't know. Elko goes on to say he's preparing like a pro, and he spends a lot of time with Colin Klein. So I know everyone is nervous, or maybe not sure how to feel about the ups and downs of Connor Wigman. Sometimes he looks like he can do no wrong. Other times, his footwork and decision making isn't quite where you would like it to be. But it's part of the process. It's part of a player who's young, who's not started a lot of games, who needs to keep playing and continue to get better, and hopefully, luckily, unlike the past two seasons, has a very good offensive line in front of him, and a great play caller and a great coach. And I think you will see Connor Wigman get back on track this Saturday. But I think that's it for any notes. So like, obviously we're pretty healthy. Like a couple guys went down during the Mississippi State game. Sounds like Scorton's fine, Shamar Stewart's fine, Scooby's fine, Interested to see. I think Bussy didn't play at like out of precaution last week. So I think you look for him to be back and be more involved in things against LSU. So yeah, obviously huge game at this point in the season, a pivotal moment, and I want to take a second to stop and remind everyone that this is the first year of a new head coach. This team has 20 plus transfers. It's not a young team, but I think there's a lot of inexperience at certain spots, and obviously not a ton of cohesion. This team looks entirely different from the one we saw last year, just from a personnel and everything, kind of standpoint. And a lot of that's in a lot of very positive ways. But I think like when we are looking at A&M, I'm very excited about what we can do this season. Obviously, everything's on the table. You could go and win out the rest of your games, go 11-1 for the first time since I don't even know when. I mean, even with Johnny Manziel, we went 10-2 in his first season, our first season in the SEC. So for that all to be on the table, go out and get a big win this weekend with a ton of recruits in town. And once again, all eyes are on College Station at 6:30 on ABC. We talked after the Notre Dame game, and I was there was so much hype and build-up going into it, and not the outcome we wanted. A very ugly game, a game that I felt like we should have won if just a few things go differently. Namely, if the quarterback plays a little bit better. But even leaving that game, I'm telling my wife, I'm telling Brittany, I'm like, hey, I'm not upset that we lost. I'm upset the way we lost and that everyone in the country saw us lose this way. Because everyone in the country saw that game and wrote us off as like, oh, they're not good. First year head coach, they'll go 7-5, 8-4, yada yada. And then which that's fine. It doesn't matter what the media or anybody thinks, but it's just annoying to have that big stage to go out and take the next step as a program and not get there and not take the step and not be successful. So we've been handed a second opportunity this year and you got another one coming later in the year on November 30th. So this is the second test. Like obviously every game's a test, but this is the one where it's the biggest game of the weekend. It's all eyes on College Station, 105,000 plus strong, blacked out, maybe in many different ways, but from a apparel standpoint and jersey uniform standpoint, which is going to look completely sick. It's such a great chance to put our best foot forward as a football program, and not just that, not just winning the game, but LSU is the only other team that has not lost a conference game. Like A&M is like when they show the standings, we're first right now because we have played 4 conference games. Most people have only played 3, and we won them. We won them all, so we're 4-0. You win this one, and you are in the driver's seat. Like you are the only team with no losses in conference play, and will be favored until you get to Texas. And maybe that one's TBD. Long way to go for both teams, for us and Texas. But I think there's so much that a win Saturday would do, so I want to keep in context that hey, this is the first year, and there's great things to come under this coaching staff in the future years. But there could be great things this season and even this weekend, this Saturday. So before we get into we're gonna go. I've looked at rewatched LSU at Ole Miss. I've rewatched LSU at Arkansas. Rewatched our games a little bit just to kind of see and try to get a feel for these two teams. And you can fry me next week. You can fry me on Saturday night if I'm wrong on this. But I try to give you guys my completely honest opinion on these things. And I kind of felt it about Mizzou. I put in one of my group chats. I was like, watching Mizzou against Vanderbilt, there's a chance that we really kick their ass. but I didn't know because we hadn't really seen it. I'm like, man, if we get the quarterback right, if the defense plays how I think they can, we can really run the ball and really like put a beat down on these guys. I don't feel that strongly as I did about Mizzou as I do about Ole Miss, or sorry, about LSU. But I'll say this: as I sit here tonight on Wednesday night, 3 days before the game, I think A&M beats LSU this Saturday by 10 points or more. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Connor Wigman is a turnover machine and the offense doesn't click and our defensive backs get burned. That's totally possible. We could absolutely lose this game. But when I take into account where it's being played, when it's being played, the crowd that I know we're going to have, and the atmosphere, and just taking the matchups into account, and how and who LSU has played the last 2 weeks, because they're getting a lot of hype, a lot of like, oh, they're peaking at the right time, they're playing so great, and they look awesome, and they're not playing bad, and they've won 2 big games in a row, but there's things when you watch the film that I'm like, okay, this is a good team. This is not. I don't think it's a great team at all, and it's certainly not an unbeatable team. So let's get into official prediction from me: A&M wins by 10 points or more, and takes control of the SEC race, and should keep it until November 30th. But let's talk LSU versus Ole Miss. This is at home for LSU. This is in Tiger Stadium. And Ole Miss, if they do just one or two different things right, they win this game easily. Easily. In the first quarter, I think. Definitely first half. Like to start the game, they had a punt, but after that they get the ball back and then they get down there, they miss a 32-yard field goal. That should be a gimme. 32 yards. Former A&M kicker Caden Davis, not good. 32 yards missed. They get down there again. They intercept the ball on like the 25-yard line. Get down there again, and 4 plays, go for it on fourth down, don't get it. That's 2 trips to the red zone, 0 points. That loses you games against SEC teams on the road, especially in Death Valley. Their third drive, get into the red zone again. Well, close to it. They're in scoring position, like scoring opportunity position, and they settle for a field goal. They kick a 49-yarder. He makes that one. First quarter, 3-0. Could have been, 17-0 or 13-0. Instead, it's 3-0. That you can't do things like that against a team like LSU. It will come back to haunt you. But this game was like, I want to talk about how Ole Miss played them defensively, because I think that's how you'll see us. Like, I think you'll see A&M play them in a similar way that Ole Miss did, and not the way Arkansas did. I'm not sure what Arkansas thought that was going to work with what they were trying to do to them, but Ole Miss has a very good defense, first and foremost. I know we all, don't like to talk about Walter Nolan, who used to be here and has transferred to Ole Miss. He's playing very well for them. They have a really good D-line. They have some good linebackers and pretty solid secondary. They went press man most of the night against LSU and said, hey, we're going to go press man and try to bring some pressure, and we don't think y'all can beat us one-on-one, at least not quick enough that our guys won't get there and get to the quarterback in time. But what bothered me was they weren't consistent with bringing the pressure. Like, sometimes they would only rush 3, and LSU's offensive line is awesome. And I don't think rushing 3 on a, 3rd and 6 is a smart idea. I think if it's 3rd and 25, then yeah, like, you want to keep everything in front of you, absolutely. But if your goal is to, run press man on their receivers and make them beat you down the field, I think it's, hey, let's bring 4 or 5 guys, exotic blitzes, stunts, twists, that kind of thing. And you didn't see a ton of that from Ole Miss, but you did. It was sometimes, but not as much as you would think. Way too much three man rushes. Way too much for my liking. But they still got a lot of pressure. This was by far the most that Nussmeier had been pressured all season. They have a great offensive line at LSU. He's been sacked one time all season. And he wasn't even sacked in this game, I don't think. But he was pressured 21 times on 52 dropbacks, so a pressure rate of 41%. That's about what we've been doing to every team we face is a pressure rate in the 40s with this defense and defensive line. So, you know, I think obviously Nussmeier's a great quarterback. He gets the ball out quick. The offensive line has several future NFL players on it, but to be quite frank, our defensive line is a lot better than Ole Miss's. They got two great defensive tackles. So do we. We've got four guys at defensive end that would start for them, if I'm being honest. So that's where I think this game might be won and lost. I mean, I think you look at, Nick Scorton, who no one has really slowed down one-on-one. Is LSU going to leave, future top 5, top 10 draft pick Will Campbell? Are they leaving him one-on-one with Nick Scorton? Do we put Nick on Emory Jones, the right tackle, who is getting some draft love, but is by far their leader in pressures allowed? He's got 12. I don't think the next guy even has like half of that. Yeah, so he's got 12 pressures allowed. The next guy has 7. That's their center, DJ Chester, number 79. So he's got the lowest pass blocking grade, along with Chester. The other guys have great grades, per PFF, but they're certainly gettable. Will Campbell went up against Landon Jackson, who's also probably a first, second round pick next year, and did a pretty nice job on him. But I think Scorton is a little bit different of an animal. I think he's more compact and more powerful and just has a sick array of pass rush moves. But, I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see them put Scorton on the other side against Jones and put Shamar Stewart on Campbell, who I posted some clips over the summer of Shamar Stewart, last season when he wasn't playing a ton of snaps a game and was still trying to figure things out. Had some really nice reps on Will Campbell, and that's just like everyone talks about those two guys, but it's Cassius Howell, who's playing awesome football. It's Rylan Kennedy. It's Torian York, who's a great blitzer. It's Scooby Williams, who's a great blitzer. Damian Sanford has gotten some sacks lately. So it's when you watch our defense for this season, week in and week out, and then you watch other defenses, you're like, okay, on third downs, on the pressure downs, we really crank it up, and it's not just a straight rush. It hardly ever is. Like they'll take Regis out most of the time and they'll bump Shamar Stewart down. They'll bring in Kennedy or Howell to be at the edge, and they'll kind of bring those backers in, like they're going to blitz Solomon DeShields and York and those guys. And sometimes they'll bail out. Sometimes, I think York has the green light most times where he can kind of feel it out for himself. And if he sees a lane, he's got the green light to fire on that and go after the quarterback. So that's something to watch for. And Nussmeier, he's not Brady Cook in terms of mobility, at least like scrambling. He's scrambled one time all season, but his mobility and his ability to kind of escape the pocket and run around, behind the line of scrimmage and keep his eyes downfield and make plays, he's pretty good at that. So that's something to watch. If we do get to him, you really need to get him on the ground, because when we give up big plays, it's when we don't, we miss that initial sack and let Taylon Green or whoever else, scramble out of the pocket and hit a big play. So once you get there, wrap him up, get your hands on him, and get him on the ground. So I don't know if anyone else will in the national media, if they're thinking, that our D line can really get after him? I think they can. And I think it's not just that, but it's, when you watch Arkansas try to defend them in the run game, they did not do a very good job at all. Ole Miss did. Ole Miss kept their run game pretty well hemmed in. That's probably why they were able to get so much pressure. Against Arkansas, I mean, Arkansas played them so soft. I don't understand why. They were giving them, 13, 15-yard cushions and then backpedaling and like on their receivers. And I'm like Nussmeier's just sitting back there and just, throwing to a wide open receiver every single play for the first half. And I'm like, guys, like this is obviously not working. So the first drive, they just went right down the field, just, on little comebacks and hitches and things. So, but, you know, talk about Landon Jackson. I thought he was too eager to get up the field, and he would always leave on run plays when they ran to the other side. They would leave this big gap, like Will Campbell would cave down, his side, and then Landon's thinking, oh, let me go after the quarterback, and they would just hand it off, and he'd cut right behind him. So that's something that I think that we're better at is stopping the run. So I think what I expect to see out of our defense is I think we are much more equipped to run press man with Will Lee and Des Ricks. I think these LSU receivers are very good, but they're not guys that we can't hang with. So that's what I think you're going to see. I think you'll see those guys play a little more press on first, second down, and then stop the run. Get LSU in a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, something like that, and then you bring the exotic looks, the blitzes, the twists, the stunts, that kind of thing. And I think that's a recipe for success against this LSU offense, which, it's good. And I'm not sure if I ever said this back in August. During the summer when it's talking season, everyone's putting out their, these are the top 10 quarterbacks in the SEC, and a lot of them are just putting the experienced guys. They're putting Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers is good. He should have been in that top mix, but for my money, I'm looking at, I've always been a fan of Nussmeier. I'm like, man, I really wish LSU didn't have I was hoping he'd transfer, or something like that. But he didn't. He stayed, and every time he's before this season when he's gotten in games, he's looked really, really good. He's always showed out in spring games. That's why I was shocked, during fall camp this year, LSU guys are like, yeah, Nussmeier's kind of erratic. He's not, not being consistent, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that's shocking to me because he's torn it up whenever he gets on the field. But so in the preseason, I'm thinking, honestly, Nussmeier and Wigman could be 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the conference. And that, when the season's over and we look back at this year, that may be the case. I think these are 2 of the best in the league for sure. So let's see. LSU offensively, the running game wasn't great to start the year. It's picked up the last couple weeks. They got a freshman running back from Duncanville, Caden Durham, who's a really good player. He had a lot of success against Arkansas. I think Arkansas's plan was just to kind of not allow anything over the top. The long ball, the big explosive pass, but they still did that, and they gave up the short stuff, the really easy throws that Nussmeier can make all day, and then eventually he hit some big ones too. But I will say I wrote this down about Nuss, who I'm a big fan of. I like him a lot. Against Ole Miss, let me pull up his stats real quick. Against Ole Miss, 22 for 51, 43.1 completion percentage. That is bad. 6.6 yards per attempt. That is bad. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Against, let's see here. Against 1, 2, 3, 4 Power 5 teams, he's got 4 interceptions. He's got 6 interceptions on the year. 1 against USC, 1 against South Carolina, 2 against South Alabama, and then 2 against Ole Miss. none against Arkansas. But you see his yards per attempt, like he put up 337 yards, but he threw the ball 51 times. Like he was just, it didn't matter if anyone was open or not. He's throwing it. That's why he never gets sacked. That's why, even with 21 pressures, he was sacked 0 times because he's a good escaper of the pocket and he can get out of trouble, and still get the ball off. But he doesn't throw it away like ever. He will. And this is what I wrote down. He will throw it to A&M. He will throw it to the other team. And there was 3 times against Arkansas, 3 balls could have been picked. Obviously against Ole Miss, 2 of them were. There was a couple others that he put in harm's way. He's just he's a gunslinger through and through, and that can be a very positive thing sometimes. It can be a negative thing sometimes. But it's something to watch for because early in the year we had a lot of dropped interceptions. I'm just saying, if they get into a 3rd and long situation, we put the heat on. He's not going to let you, like, we may sack him a time or two, but he's not going to get sacked 6 times. He's going to throw that thing. And if our guys are in a position to make a play, it could be a really good day for the defensive backs. But so it's interesting. I mean, it's a very interesting matchup. And these receivers, so like we talked O-line, running back, quarterback, their receivers are very good players. They really are. Obviously, Kyron Lacy, I think he's a future NFL guy. Aaron Anderson he signed with Alabama coming out, transferred to LSU last season. Was behind those other NFL guys that they had last season, and now he's been tearing it up. Here lately. So number 2 and number 1, they're guys to watch. Number 4, C.J. Daniels. I think he's listed as probable for this game. He missed Ole Miss, came back for Arkansas, had a couple big catches. Sorry, I'm looking up the injury report because they had a couple guys on there for LSU. Okay, so Chris Hilton Jr., he's been out for a few weeks. He's questionable. C.J. Daniels is probable, the other receiver. Caden Durham shows up, the running back I just talked about, but he's probable. Starting offensive guard Miles Frazier is probable. And then Greg Penn, the starting middle linebacker, he's gone down in both of those games that I watched, Arkansas and Ole Miss. But he's always come back in the game. At least I think he did against Arkansas. But he's listed as probable for this weekend. Don't know much about his backup if he can't go. But on the offensive side, to wrap up here, I think this is big for this defensive line. I've got a clip from Elko I'm going to play here when I take a break here in a second. But if you want to play in the NFL, if you want to be a high draft pick, the first games the scouts are going to look at are the ones against the LSUs, the Notre Dames, the Texases. Like, they're going to watch that first. They're not going to watch, McNeese or maybe even Mississippi State this season, like for these defensive linemen. They want to see, oh, Texas had a great O-line. LSU had a great O-line. Mizzou had a good O-line. Let's see how these guys did in those games. So that's got to be such a huge motivator to come out and be like, hey, I'm in my 4th year as a defensive lineman. I'm playing for a draft position right now. What better way than to go out against some of the guys that the drafts or the scouts already love? They love Will Campbell. They like Emory Jones. Both guards, I think, are NFL prospects. That is a huge, huge opportunity for these guys. And, I know it's about wanting to win and that sort of thing, but I'm sure these guys do, but the added pressure or the added excitement of being able to be like, okay, if I go out there and kick ass this game, that's going to do me a lot of good in the long run, especially when April comes around. So something to look for. And then, the name of the game is these defensive backs. I think when you watch Missouri, we're running a lot of man coverage. Ricks and Lee really held their own. It was really when we went zone, when we went cover three, and tried to roll to it, and just kind of got lost. And both of the big ones were on Ricks. So I think he's young. I think he's learning. He actually played perfectly fine last week. As we played, I feel like we played off and played a lot more zone against, a more air raidy type team in Mississippi State. So it's something to watch. I mean, on the first drive, I'm really curious to see how we want to attack them and counter what they want to do. But I think the recipe is press up Lee and Ricks. I think this is big for Dalton Brooks, big for B.J. Mays at nickel, or Jaden Hill if he's in there, because these receivers are very, very good. They catch the football really, really well. They don't drop a lot of passes, and they're very, very athletic. So big test, but stop the run game, which I think we can, and put pressure on Nussmeier, and don't let guys run free. So that's my spiel on. I think this is a really good matchup for this A&M defense. It's a very big test, and I think if this defense goes out there and holds LSU to, like, 17 points, I think you win the game first of all. But you kind of tell the rest of the country, like, hey, this defense is for real. It's not just the defensive line. It's not just against the lesser teams on the schedule, quote unquote lesser teams. I think Missouri's a pretty good team still, but it's against a team that everyone is hyping up right now. They're number 8 in the AP poll, getting a lot of love. Just a huge, huge chance to go make a statement. Real quick, let's hear from Mike Elko being asked about the pass rush against LSU on Saturday.
Yeah, Coach. Obviously, the pass rush has been a big a plus for Texas A&M this year. They have what I hear is like maybe as good as tackle tandem as there is in the country. So, is there a better position by position matchup, and what could you envision for that? Going on there this weekend.
No, I think it's a great matchup. I kind of joked with our guys this morning. I said there's $10 million cash on the line this weekend.
Sorry, is that coming through? I don't think it is.
So, if you want it, it's yours. But yeah, no, it'll be a great matchup. It'll be a lot of fun. I think that's what happens in these types of games, right? You see these high level players on both sides of the ball for both programs that get a chance to go up and go head to head against each other. And so, that's certainly one. And I think our running backs against their linebackers is another. Their wideouts. There's a lot of those types.
Okay, so I think you guys heard Mike Elko there. At least I hope you did. Got confirmation. Pigskins and Pageantry. Appreciate you tuning in and helping me out here as I battle technical difficulties. They say they can hear it. I did cut it off the first time because I couldn't hear it on my headphones. So it worked as in the like before I fired it up. Hopefully it worked on YouTube. I'll definitely get it sorted out when I put it on the podcast. But yeah, so yeah, he said, hey, there's 10 million bucks on the table. Who wants it? If Shamar Stewart, if Nick Scorton, if Shamar Turner, if you guys want it, you got to go out there and take it. These are the guys you're taking it from. You get to go mano a mano, and show the scouts and show the world what you're about. Show the NFL what you're about, and put yourself in there as a first round pick, potentially. So love hearing that from the head man, and challenging his players to go out there and do what they can do against a pretty good offensive line for LSU. Turning the page, looking at LSU's defense, the past couple of games and against A&M. So LSU was horrible on defense a season ago, and they lost a lot of guys. Like they lost, I think, 3 defensive tackles from last year's team were taken in the NFL draft. They had some guys transfer out, and they just they struck out on guys in the transfer portal, especially on the defensive line. And then their most veteran guy, I think he's a 5th-year senior, Jacoby and Guillory. He goes down for the season in like week 3 or 4, and then you lose Harold Perkins for the season. They're certainly playing better than they did last season. I think Arkansas was very limited on offense. I don't think Taylon Green, he got banged up against Tennessee. He didn't, they had a week off. He was kind of questionable coming into the game. Definitely didn't run like he has in the past. Jaquin Jackson kept trying to get out there and give it a go. He was obviously very banged up as well. So, and I don't know what the deal or who was out for, if anybody was out. Like I don't know, Arkansas's offensive line starters. But they did not look very good at all in this game, and I know that they didn't look great against us because our defensive line is pretty stout, but they were horrible against LSU, and not just like they didn't look like players who were ready to play at this level, and I think they've got a couple injuries that I think they have to have the guys they have playing out there. But LSU's defensive line is it's got one really what I would call a great player as number 4, Braden Swinson, defensive end. Exceptional pass rusher. He plays with speed and power. Can get around you. Can also drive you back into the quarterback. He far and away leads their team in pressures and sacks. The rest of the defensive line is just. I think it's average. The other end, Savion Jones, he's okay. He can be active at times. The defensive tackles are really, I think that's the most average group they've had there in a very, very long time. So I think from actually, I'll put it this way because I had this written down on my notes, but I would have to, obviously I don't watch the rest of every game that everyone plays in the whole country. But I watch a lot of the SEC, and I'm not sure there's a more underrated group, single position group in this whole conference than A&M's offensive line. A&M has a top 5 offensive line in this league. I would not have said that or even close to it over the summer. I would have prayed for a top half, middle of the pack, somewhere in the 10 to 8 range. Would have been thrilled with that and not 16th. Like they've played, the last 2 seasons. They're very, very good. They've played 9 different guys. I don't even know how many different combinations. Probably, there's no telling how many combinations. But they've played, 6 guys on the interior. They've played 3 at tackle. And there's never been any drop off. Like they just go out there, they execute, they play their assignments, they protect the quarterback, they stifle opposing pass rushes. I think Connor's, pressure rate pressure rate allowed is in the it's like 30, when in the past years it's been like 43%, which is abysmal. And it's getting better. Against Mississippi State it was 12, so I don't think it'll be quite that low. I think they will be able to get some pressure on him, but I would expect this offensive line, especially the way that Colin Klein will likely call plays for this game and attack LSU's defense. I don't think we're going to have a lot of drop back, you know, sit back in the pocket and need the O line to block for 3 and 4 seconds. But if we do, I think they can. I think I trust Trey Zune. I trust Demetrius Crownover to handle Braden Swinson at least for the most part. He's a very very talented player. He will probably make a play or two in this game, but he's not going to dominate the game. I don't think. And on top of that, we should be able to run the ball very effectively. I mean, I don't think they've seen a run blocking offensive line like ours. I don't think they've seen running backs like Moss and Daniels, especially Moss. So I think if we get that back on track and get that rolling, and I would assume that they're going to try to sell out to stop it. You come out, hit a couple big plays early, and back them off a little bit. Sorry, big plays through the passing game, and back them off a little bit. It could be a really good day for the A&M offense. So that's their D line. Their linebackers, obviously, Perkins has gone out. He's been out for a few weeks now. He's out for the season, but they've started playing better in his absence, and the addition of Whit Weeks to the linebacker room or to the starting lineup, number 40, makes a ton of plays. To be quite honest, I think he may be getting a little bit too much love. I know that's going to sound like sour grapes and sound like homerism. Look, he's really good and he's very active. Makes a ton of tackles, that sort of thing. He has broken up passes, got an interception against Arkansas. But he's not like a C.J. Mosley, Reuben Foster, Devin White type of physical freak. Like he's very blockable, and that's not a slight to him. He's just not the world's biggest, baddest linebacker. Now he will fly downhill. He will, attack the line of scrimmage, and he's a pretty good blitzer. But when I'm watching Ole Miss's offensive line, I'm watching Arkansas's offensive line. They're not the mauling run blockers that our group has, and they were even able to take care of him quite a bit, at least in the running game. But the other one's Greg Penn. He's on the injury report as questionable, or I guess he's probable. Let me double check that. Yeah, Greg Penn is probable. He's a good player. He's a kid that we recruited. I think he's from Pennsylvania or somewhere on the East Coast. But he's good. He's solid. He won't miss tackles. He'll be in the right spot most of the time. Good player for them, not a difference-making game breaker type. If he can't go, that would be a big thing because I think there is some drop off to him and the guy behind him. But linebacker, they're solid, they're good, but they're not great, and certainly not something that we can't handle as an offense. Where I think they're really gettable is, and this is what I wrote down in my notes. Our receivers will be open. It's been true for I think every game LSU has played. Ole Miss had guys open. Ole Miss should have had a 80-yard touchdown pass to Trey Harris early in that game, and Dart put it on the money, and Harris just dropped it, which is not like him. He usually catches everything, at least if he's playing A&M last year. But they dropped that. I think he got hurt maybe halfway through that game and couldn't finish it out. But Arkansas had guys open all day long, and they got good receivers. I think I'd probably favor our group, but Arkansas has got some really good receivers. And I think if Taylon Green plays a better game and gets the ball out when it needs to, that's a different ball game. And I think people are kind of guilty of scoreboard watching. They'll be like, oh, 34-10, LSU probably dominated this game and kicked their ass. Well, I think it was 16-10 even in the fourth quarter. It was very close. Arkansas, had 3 turnovers, and like one was at the 2 yard line, so that's a easy touchdown on the very next play. But Arkansas struggled on offense, but then in the first quarter had their first good run of the game, and the guy fumbles, gives the ball to LSU, on the like in Arkansas territory. So obviously, it goes without saying you can't turn the ball over in this kind of game with a team as good as LSU is. So that just can't happen. So all things equal, say if the turnovers are even for this game, I certainly favor A&M. And their defensive backs, like it's hard for me to really gauge like how good our passing game is based off of the the matchup with the other team's secondary. It's where I really struggle as an analyst, I guess, if you will. As just like I didn't play receiver or corner. Don't know as much about coverage. I'm getting there. I'm learning, but I think a lot of our success is based off of the plays that we run, and we have great receivers. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of it is scheme related, and I think the emergence of Jabri Barber is something to keep an eye on as he's getting better and better each week. I think Noah should see a lot of targets. I think Ja'Day Walker is playing quite well. X factor in this game could be Terry Bussey. Had some really, really big plays and big moments against Missouri at home. So young freshman still, I think had a minor injury setback. Sounds like he's good to go for the weekend. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think that the secondary for LSU is a place where they're very vulnerable, just based off of what Arkansas was able to do, some of the plays that Ole Miss and even USC hit early in the season. And when I watched their tape, I like number 14, Johnson, J.K. Johnson, I believe. I think he's a really, really nice player. But the other guys, Stance is okay. They're starting Jordan Gilbert, former A&M safety, starting for them at safety. And like, their secondary, it's just not what you would think of a typical LSU secondary. So I'm curious. Like, this is a big test for Connor and these receivers, and for Colin Klein. Can you go out and find ways to attack them? And especially when I think I think Swinson is probably the best. I think he's the best defensive end we've seen, but as a defensive line as a whole, they're not even close to Notre Dame and how disruptive they could be. But I think the singular guy with Swinson being that guy, I think that's interesting to see. But honestly, the defense, they're playing well right now. They're doing a good job, against Arkansas. But I just when I watch it, I'm like, man, when you factor in, just trying to visualize A&M's offense against their defense and our O-line against their D-line, and all those matchups that we just talked about. I really do favor A&M, and it's a big game for this coaching staff and for these players. And if A&M, if Connor Wigman can play the way that we know he can, that he knows he can, and we call a good game and keep him clean and run the football with Moss and Daniels, it could be a lot of fun. And let's see, we got some comments from my buddy Sutton Jones. He said, breaking, A&M will black out Kyle Field this weekend against LSU to show our solidarity and support for Vanderbilt. Hashtag anchor down. Great segue into the rest of the show here as we wrap it up. It's a big weekend for college football, and I do think that A&M is the best. I think A&M LSU is the best matchup or the best game this weekend. It's 14 versus 8 for pole position in the SEC, all those things. But the rest of the games aren't that great. There's some good games during the week. There's one on Thursday. There's one tomorrow night. Syracuse at Pitt. Pitt 6-0, 19th in the AP poll. Dark horse playoff, perhaps. I don't think they'll do it, but they certainly could. Syracuse could put a dent in those plans. Friday night, Boise at UNLV. Um, I got to be honest. I think I favor UNLV in that. I mean, I know. Look, Ashton Jeanty is amazing. He's a fantastic player. I don't know why this game is on CBS Sports Network. It should be on ESPN main channel. But UNLV, man, that's a very well coached team. It's a very, pretty solid defense and very good offense to go with it. So, yeah, man, I think Boise's favored, but that game is in. This is at Allegiant in Las Vegas. So, man, watch out for the UNLV Rebels. Elsewhere in the country, Sam Houston. They played last night. Who's on right now? Oh, is this game over? Wow. Kennesaw State takes down Liberty 27-24. Liberty had the softest schedule you could ever find of any team ever, and they blew it. Big loss to probably the worst team. Kennesaw was 0-6. They were in very real danger of going 0-12 this season. Big win for them over the Liberty Flames. A little CUSA on a Wednesday night. Syracuse is at Pitt Thursday. Boise at UNLV tomorrow night. Saturday, I think Ohio State waxes Nebraska. Nebraska was a bit of fool's gold early in the season. They got waxed by Indiana. They'll get waxed again this weekend. Notre Dame at Navy. I know this is going to be a wet blanket on the Navy hype. And Navy's good. They're really good. They're not going to score a lot of points on Notre Dame, and I think Riley Leonard has finally figured a few things out. Even though I think Notre Dame has been bitten by the injury bug pretty severely, but I'd be shocked if Notre Dame doesn't cover this football game. They're at 13.5 right now. Indiana hosts Washington for College Game Day, first time in Bloomington. That's big for them. I think they should be able to take care of Washington. We'll see how that one goes. Early game for Washington fans, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Oklahoma is at Ole Miss. Oklahoma can't score. Ole Miss should take care of business. Trying to find something that affects the playoff race here. BYU at UCF. UCF came this close to pulling off the upset against Iowa State, and then Rocco Becht just rallied them down the field and pulled that one off to remain undefeated. Now they get the other undefeated Big 12 team, the BYU Cougars. BYU's played with fire a little bit this year. They've been kind of lucky. Very fortunate they didn't lose last week. UCF made a quarterback change. They have benched former Arkansas quarterback KJ Jefferson. They are now rolling with Ja'Carry Brown, who is honestly a perfect fit for what Malzahn wants to do on offense. So watch out for that one at 2:30 on ESPN. On CBS at 2:30, number 20 Illinois at Oregon, who is number 1. Oregon should take care of business, but Illinois has enough to, I think, make it interesting. But this will probably be Illinois' second loss, if I had to guess. Missouri at Alabama is 2:30 on ABC. This would have been a lot more interesting until a few hours ago. They announced Missouri quarterback Brady Cook is doubtful with an injury, ankle injury. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but he got hurt in the first half of that game against Auburn. Went to the hospital, had his ankle checked out, came back, got back in the game, and won the game for Missouri. Just a truly gutsy performance by him. Really, really good player. I know he didn't have the best day here at Kyle Field, but he's a tough, gritty player. If they had him, they could at least make a game of it with Alabama. Now, I think Alabama probably handles them pretty well. I think Drew Pine will be the quarterback there. Oh. Oh, allergies. Okay, as we close it out, uh, Wake Forest at Stanford, nerd alert. Let's see, Texas Tech. Thank you, Chase Long. Bless you. That's the right thing to do. Glad we got one respectful fan in this place. Okay, Texas at Vanderbilt, 3:15 on SEC Network. I know you guys want me to say it. Upset alert, yada yada. We'd all love to see it, of course. I just don't think we do. I think no, so. Last night, it was on our. I think I was able to put it on our YouTube channel here, but I was on Ghost and Friends podcast with the Ghost of Texas Football and a couple of LSU folks. The folks at Texas think that Quinn is still injured. He missed a few games with an abdominal injury, allowing Arch Manning to get a couple starts. They think Quinn has some lingering things. That's why, you know, there was a tweet making the rounds this week of his that Quinn's average depth of target has decreased year over year from like over 10 to like 8 last season, and now it's hovering around 6, just over 6 yards average depth of target this year. And you saw that against Georgia. I mean, Georgia completely took away everything downfield. There was a lot of dump offs in that game, and I'm not sure if it was just the defense that they're facing and trying to limit explosive plays, and they have to go, dump off and throw some stuff underneath. But the people at Texas seem to think that there could be some issues with Quinn as far as injury goes, or at least he's just not fully healthy yet. On the Vanderbilt side, ranked 25th. That's awesome for the Commodores. If you didn't see this, they put up netting today in front of the visiting fan section. So any potential visiting fans of any school won't be able to throw stuff onto the field if there is a bad call that they may not agree with. Not anyone specific, not saying any names, just that's what they did this week before they play Texas. So take that as you will. I think Vanderbilt can make it. So it's Texas is an 18.5 favorite. I think Vanderbilt can kind of do what they did against Bama, where they try to hold the ball for a long time and eat up clock and slow the game down. But I don't think they have what it takes to ultimately get the win. They very well could. I'm just not sitting here expecting that to happen. Miami will beat the dog crap out of Florida State. Speaking of dog crap, the curse is still on because the guy has not done it yet. A bunch of games I don't want to watch. Penn State at Wisconsin. That's on during our game. You guys won't be watching it, but Penn State is ranked number 3. They're probably not the third best team. I'm pretty sure they're not, but they haven't lost, and they should take care of business this weekend and beat Wisconsin pretty good. So obviously LSU at A&M blackout, Cal Field 6:30 on ABC. That's man, yeah, we really are kind of all by ourselves as far as I know there's ranked versus ranked. Notre Dame, Navy, Illinois, Oregon, BYU, UCF. The 2:30 time slot is pretty nice, but man, in the evening it's going to be all eyes on Kyle Field. So we've got Auburn at Kentucky, if that's to your liking. Kansas at K-State. SMU number 22 at Duke. Watch out for SMU's, I guess, playoff hopes. I mean, they technically have a shot. They could certainly get in there and into the ACC championship game and do some damage. I don't know how that tiebreaker works if Miami and Clemson and SMU all continue to win out. I bet one of them loses. I bet it's SMU. I don't bet it'll be this weekend, but that certainly could happen. To close us out, Washington State at San Diego State. Cincinnati at Colorado is on ESPN main channel. That's fine. I think Cincy can get that one. quietly having a decent year in the Big 12. Colorado has some injuries. I don't know if Travis Hunter can give it a go. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, man, that's it. I mean, it's big time. It's as good of an opportunity as we've had in a long time, and not just for for conference positioning, but what it could mean, you know, big picture the rest of this season. Can you get into the playoff? Can you win the conference? Your first conference title since '98. Can you, you know, if not, can you make the playoff? Can you make some noise in the playoff? Maybe get a home game, make a deep run as this, new team and new staff continue to get better each week. And yeah, man, it's exciting. It's a very exciting proposition. So I'll be there on Saturday, yelling till my voice goes out. And yeah, like I said, I think we win it. I think it's by double digits. I've been wrong before, could be wrong again. But either way, I'll be back here on Monday, breaking it all down, owning up to my prediction, good or bad, true or false. But thank you guys so much. This has been a big week. This is my fourth different podcast thing that I've been on this week. I had my own two, had Pigskin and Pageantry, had Ghost and Friends. Love the interaction and getting to know this community even better. But as always, appreciate your guys' support so much. If you're going to the game, wear black, yell loud, and beat the ever living, ever loving hell out of LSU. Thanks.